We essentially train a lot of our AI agents and like these automations, these flows by first doing the task ourselves. Oftentimes we have on the onboarding call, we get a lot of information from the owners and they don't really document things. No one really documents anything. And so this starts to get into the habit of, okay, how can we take these conversations that we're having, which there's so much rich data in these calls and these conversations into tangible SOPs or documents that start to build out the library or the context of the company. For the last, we'll call it 6 to 8 months, I've been very in the weeds of AI and applying AI to solve a lot of the SMB problems that I've been a part of as an owner of an SMB. I actually left working at the Walt Disney Company, Johnson Johnson, Fortune 50 companies as a management leader, and then pivoted into private equity, really learning about this world of buying and selling businesses. And I pivoted into actually buying and buying a couple of my own. But I realized there were so many challenges with buying and just operating a small business, very different from a large scale company, that I quickly had to adapt and use resources and technology to the best of my ability. And fast forward to today, I'm now essentially applying a lot of the learnings that I do with AI for small businesses as a growth expert, growth consultant to private equity firms, to small business owners who want to essentially grow and exit for a larger valuation, right? And so I've seen really the change in technology over the last several months. But even at Disney, I spent a lot of time in the AI space, working on some really innovative projects when I was there, right? So I've gotten a chance to see the AI evolve tremendously, and now really applying it to some of these small businesses because of the fact that it's available, it's accessible, right? So I'm excited to share some of the learnings, obviously answer some questions. I know when I spoke to you, Jay, we were kind of geeking out a little bit because you have some of this background in data and, we'll call it analyzing things and applying transformation, right?
Yeah, so let's start a little bit about the private equity project that you're working on, which I found fascinating because it's kind of relevant to what the guys are doing here on the acquisition side. So, kind of describe that project and what you guys are doing there.
Okay, so ultimately, what we've been tasked to do is come in as growth experts for some of these businesses that may not be ready to sell, meaning that there's a list of buyer checklist items that aren't really meeting their criteria, right? The typical buyer box is you have to have a certain amount of EBITDA, or you have to have certain systems in place. And there's just so many businesses out there that don't have that, yet they're still cash flowing. They've been around for 10 plus years. And so what the unique idea was, can we come in as growth consultants, essentially add a digital transformation layer to them, very light, but essentially improve, right, profit, add some systems, and increase valuation so that private equity firms and other buyers will find it much more appealing. And at the same time, how can we implement AI agents so that way the new buyer who comes in basically has a vehicle that is primed, is ready to go, and all you have to do is just maintain it, right? Slight maintenance for the future, right? And so, yeah, it's been, like I said, an interesting journey.
So can you describe it a little bit more, like in terms of like what does it look like, so the guys can understand what are you,
Sure.
specifically what you're talking about.
So we focus primarily on industrial businesses, right? Industrial manufacturing businesses. And when we do a typical kind of onboard, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll evaluate a company's systems, similar to what you kind of talked about, Jay, where you get in there, you kind of have to understand end to end, what's the business map look like, right? I know, I think you asked me to have some things ready to
Yeah.
share. This process is right now manual, but we are moving towards trying to get this to be more of an automated an AI agent driven process, right? So um, I'll kind of walk through the process of how this goes about, and then in through the conversation, you can ask questions, but I'll interject with some of the AI initiatives that we're doing for marketing, for sales, for operations, and for finance, because that's really what we're trying to do is really looking at these different departments and saying, how can we add a layer of AI, whether it's through automation or an agent that does the work of someone who's either there or an expert that would do something, right? Um, so this is the first kind of thing that we do, right? We do this kind of onboarding process where we really want to identify end to end, right? From marketing, sales, fulfillment to finance. What are all of the different systems? How essentially do you go from moving from a customer who doesn't know anything about you to eventually converting them, buying your product, buying your service, to delivering that service, and then eventually collecting on that cash, right? I think, Jay, you kind of mentioned that you do something like this as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this right here becomes actually like a very, very important aspect in our process, because this helps us identify all the problems, right? We do this exercise again to understand the current state, because in order for us to really improve the future state, we need to say, we like to operate on the theory of constraints. Are you familiar with that, Jay? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
obviously your
Yeah, got the
supply
book right
chain.
here.
Yeah, yeah, obviously. So then the ability to understand your current state and your bottlenecks, your constraints is really important. So that way, when you go into implementing a new solution, you know where to focus, right? So we start off here. The second piece we then do is we map out all the different problems, right? We do this exercise of identifying all the problems that a SMB faces, and then also identifying what are all the potential deliverables that can help mitigate that problem. We do an analysis of how many hours it usually takes a person or people to do that task, whether it's an expert or a support person. What's the tedious level score? And then what are the tools involved? And this is actually really important. The tools involved, when we think, and I'm going to take a step back. I don't know if everyone knows the details of AI. Actually, how many people are using, like, I don't know, we'll call it prompt engineering as part of their day-to-day work, just out of curiosity, just so I know who I'm talking to.
So 100% this audience.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
If you guys know like the proper structures of how to implement, a good prompt, right? You have your user, you have your system generated prompts, your instructions, your examples, your output.
No, but I just keep asking it to tell me to make better prompts, and it's getting better every day. So,
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, and that's kind of how I started off too, right? It's just kind of asking it to give me the better version.
So go ahead. What was the framework again?
There's a system level prompt, right? Which is basically saying it's the role that you're giving the AI or the LLM to fulfill, right? You
Yeah.
are an expert business analyst, or you are a financial advisor or something like that, right? You're kind of giving it some context. That's the system prompt, right? That's the kind of the starting point. Actually, let me see if I can find an example, which I have probably from here. Yeah, here you go. Actually, that's good. Let's do this one. I actually was doing a couple on your company, Jay. I think this is Mash Tanks. Is that your?
Munshank. Yeah. Well, all one word,
Okay,
not the
yeah.
S.
So here's kind of an example of a really kind of focused prompt, and you'll see actually why this matters. I'll show you the output. But the first part is the system prompt, which is you are a senior business analyst trained in investment diligence, right? I won't read this, but that's kind of the first part, right? Kind of giving it the context. Then you focus on providing it the instructions. And the instructions sometimes, you actually input like what tools to use or exactly the step-by-steps to follow, right? Or the questions to answer, right? And then the third piece is the actual kind of output. What do you want it to, what's the output that you want it to look like, right? And so by doing that sort of prompt, you get a much cleaner and consistent um, output that then you can use for whatever purpose, right? And so the reason why again I describe this is because when doing this analysis, we want to understand what are all the tools, and also what are all the steps that are being done to perform that specific deliverable or that to solve that problem. Because when we're building out our agents, which I'll show you guys in the future or a bit later, um, the more detail of the steps that you provide, the better the outcome. Because what we're really doing is we're trying to recreate results, outcome, right? We're trying to create outcome, right? And so this exercise of kind of going in, understanding the current state, understanding the problems, understanding the tools, the steps, that starts to build this kind of knowledge base, right? Because if you think about it, ChatGPT is very powerful. All these LLMs are really powerful, but they're only powerful with the information that you give it, right? And nowadays, it's only really accessible to the internet, which is still very accessible, very powerful. But imagine you being able to connect a business and all the steps and all the, processes, SOPs in place, right? That now you can start to take what a person does and recreate it through some sort of series of prompts, right? I'll pause there. I just want to make sure that I'm registering. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay. So then kind of go to the next level, right? So we get these series of kind of like these steps, right? The problems. And then from there, we really start to identify the actual um, AI solutions, right? Now, when it comes to solutions, we typically, at least from what we're working on right now, we do a series of either AI agent building or automations that tackle from a sales perspective these types of kind of outcomes, right? Having automated lead research and enrichment, having automated lead qualification and scoring, right? These are some of the practices that obviously larger scale organizations do, but small scale businesses I have found don't always do these things. Wouldn't you say so, Jay? I mean, what kind of companies do you typically
Yeah, most SMBs don't have that process in place. Yeah, they barely pick up the phone.
right, right.
So,
Yeah, exactly. Right. Or they take too long to respond to
yeah,
things, right? Like emails come in, they slip through the cracks. Even getting them to give you like metrics or data, they don't even know what data, where to get it,
correct.
right? So oftentimes what we do is we first, like I said, we do that analysis of the systems, but if we don't have any systems in place, we try to actually implement some certain systems, right? Whether that means adding in a new CRM, like a HubSpot, or just start tracking, right? As simple as we use Google Tag Manager for a lot of our clients, but just having Google Tag Manager set up on people's websites so that way we can add in lots of different pixel tracking tools, right? To kind of see how can we turn traffic that's coming to the website into insights that we can then later, do some sort of action with, right? So these are some of the kind of high level things that we do on the sales inbound side. On the
So,
outbound side,
so hold on. So that 1 week number there, is that like how long does the process take to break down, how do we build an automated lead research and enrichment? Is that what you're
it's technically the implementation phase. That's how long it takes.
Okay,
Right?
got it.
Yeah.
Okay, to
Once it
to
once it's implemented, it runs, in seconds, right? As long as you keep feeding it, we'll call it with the data,
got it.
then
So let's just take that for an example. So automating the lead research. So let's say, John is looking for all the metal fabricating. What are you looking for, John?
We would be looking for OEMs that would be building things out of steel and aluminum. So someone that would need metal fabrication services because they build products out of steel and aluminum.
Okay. So how do
the
you automate the lead research and enrichment for John?
yeah. So the first would be one of the ways to do it is there a company that right now that's doing it, right? That you can kind of we can basically build out lookalikes. Is there a company that is kind of currently doing this?
Is there, John? Is there a company that has a list of these
Oh,
OEMs that you know of?
yeah, I'm sure we could go out and buy a list.
Like, are you talking about, Richard, are you talking about like a data axle or like a
No,
Zoom
no, no.
info or
I'm saying, is there a company right now that's serving the same audience that's doing basically that you're trying like what is the you're trying to get a list of, let me make sure I understand. So you're trying to get a list of OEMs that are, sorry, say it again one more
they are
time.
buying metal and aluminum parts,
Okay.
steel,
Uh,
steel and aluminum parts.
okay. Uh, so like I said, one way that we typically do it is we try to find a company that is currently serving that market. So for example, right? And I'm
So a
just gonna,
competitor?
yeah, like a competitor,
Yeah.
right? So one tool we like to use is Ocean.io. Have you heard of Ocean.io?
No?
So this one is a really good lookalike tool that we've used to start building out, we'll call it a lead list based off of either a competitor who is serving similar audiences, or basically, you want to get audiences that are similar to a company, right? Um, so in your example, is there one that we could use that we could probably search real quick? That just
Um,
And it's okay if you don't, because this is again more so for the exercise of knowing where you can start, right? So this is again knowing your best customer, we can develop these lookalikes and then get lists based off of that, right? That list is just the first part, right? Obviously, in any type of solution, you have to have some sort of starting point. And then the enrichment part comes with our additional prompts. So let me give you an example of one that we're doing right now through kind of a study. So we're building a lot of things in N8N. Are you guys familiar with N8N? I know, Jay, you started recently using it. Yep. Okay. So what we are doing right now is we're essentially trying to leverage N8N to automate certain tasks. So for example, this right here, the automated lead research and enrichment, what this is really trying to kind of mean is that can we input let's say a website URL, or maybe if I had a conversation with someone, can I take that transcript and enrich it so that way I know more about that company, right? And so in this case, and this is again setting up a system so that you can do this repeatedly over and over and over. So N8N is great for that. And I'm going to show you kind of a quick demo of that, right? Where let's say we had a call with, I don't know, you had a call with someone who started giving you information about that company. You have the transcript. I'm sure all of you guys use some sort of transcribing tool, and there's a transcribing tool on this Zoom, right?
Yeah.
But and typically, like the tool gives you a good summary, right? But it doesn't really. I don't know if you ever tried interacting with your past conversations, but a lot of these tools, these LLMs, allow you to now. I mean, if you give it the transcript, the full transcript, you can give it, a specific, hey, I want you to provide me these three things, or go do more research on this one brand or company that was mentioned, right? And so that's kind of what we've prepared so far. So like, for example, right now, I have these sample transcripts where if I move this transcript file into this prospect call transcript kind of step, so I'm going to move that there. It's going to essentially take that document, and then it's going to, right now I don't have it turned on. I'm just, for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to run it automatically. But you can see here what it's going to do is it's going to take that file, and I'm going to essentially run it through a series of LLM prompts to get me to do something with it, right? This one is specifically, again, that you see that kind of system prompts, right? You are an expert sales professional, use this transcript, break it down, give me information, right? And what's cool about this way of exploring is that no matter what input you get you can it's always going to give you something new, something different, right? Meaning for any company, right? But it's the output itself is going to have it's be pretty core. So let me try to show you if I run it real quick. So if I test it,
So just
when
to kind of like pause right there, I think one of the most important things about putting a flow chart for every process is that it makes it a lot easier to do the automation later. You know, so that was the kind of like the beginning of the exercise where you flow chart everything within your process to the task level. It makes it a lot easier to automate down the line when you have a tool like this. So here, you know, the first task or the trigger of the task is you moving a file into a folder.
Mhm.
And then as soon as you move that file into that folder, it automatically creates. Is it summarizing or is it what
And
does it
that's a
say?
sales,
So
there's
is
a
it
sales
sent? What is
guide.
the sales guide?
So the sales guide is more so for me to understand the sales of the business. So that way, if I were to, um, oftentimes the way that we do it is we like to imagine ourselves as the salesperson of that company and understand what is their ICP, what is the potential objections, so that when we talk to
So
them,
so the sales guide is a context window. So it's given the it's a background information that gives it context, correct? Or is it an end product?
well, so it's two, it's both, right? So it's basic because every single one of these prompts is it's essentially giving it more information about that company. And so we like to do that tiered approach where we say, okay, let's get a lot of information about the customer, about the who's the ideal customer, right? Any business, you have to start off with who's your customer, who you're serving, things like that, right? That and then we produce an output, right? And then that also then becomes another input for okay, create a proposal for me, right? In our case, we're trying to create it for providing a service. So create a proposal using the sales guide as well as any known problems, right? This is another one. Do an assessment, right? For after we do the onboard, we're going to do an assessment. So it's really streamlining all of these things that we do into a matter of seconds. And so let me show you now the output of what that looks like. So here's the sales guide. So you can see that this is essentially the output, right? So I gave it this is the initial transcript. So you can see I'm not kind of doing any magical tricks here, but I think it was this assessment document. And you can see it's just text, lots and lots of text, right? And then it took that text and then it basically cleaned it up and created this sales guide, right? So the company operates in the real estate sector, primarily focusing on acquiring, renovating, and renting residential properties through its subsidiary Rosie Homes. Okay, what's the product overview? They do acquisitions, renovation, property management. Okay, great. Who are the IC? Who's the ICP? Investors, first-time buyers. Okay, great. What's the
We
competition
don't we
look?
don't see the doc. I think we just see the folder.
Oh, okay. That's strange. So let me stop sharing and share again. Can you see it now?
Oh, here you go. Yeah. So essentially, you use the transcript, and then the transcript created this sales guide by the client,
Yeah.
and then you're gonna use the sales guide to do what?
I'm going to use the sales guide to then be able to, well, for the selling part, right? Once we're going in here and trying to improve their business, we say, hey, here's a better sales guide to what you do right now, right? Oftentimes we have on the onboarding call, we get a lot of information from that from the owners. And they don't really document things. No one really documents anything. And so this starts to get into the habit of, okay, how can we take these conversations that we're having, which there's so much rich data in these calls and these conversations into tangible SOPs or documents that start to build out the library or the context of the company, right? And then we're essentially referencing this for the next prompt or the series of prompts, because trying to remember, who, and especially when you're doing it with lots of different clients, it's impossible. Like that's one of the limitations of a human. We're great at making personal connections, but our memory is very finite. But these LLMs, if you give it, this library, they can remember, they can do a lot with it, right? So we're essentially starting to build that knowledge base, that SOP library, whatever you want to call it, so that way it can reference and point to it, right, going forward. So that's one use case, right? Where we're taking essentially a document and we're trying to enrich it. The other way that we're trying to do this is also through a website link, right? A lot of people are doing this where you enter in a URL and it spits out some sort of analysis, right? Or some sort of debrief. Here's an exercise that I've been doing a couple with the club clients. I know you guys probably do this as well. You want to understand the unit economics of the business. When we dive into a company, we always want to know, well, I mean, how the breakdown, right? Like, what are the numbers, right? How many impressions are they getting, per month? How many of those are turning into appointments? How many of those are converting into actual customers? And so what we're trying to do is actually up front, we're trying to do a little bit of analysis of the unit economics by simply using a URL of the website to essentially enrich the business. This is just a precursor. We do a form of cleanup after when we have the actual conversations with people. But this is just another thing that can be done. And I can actually share some of these with you guys if you're interested. These are N8N workflows that I know, Jay, I think you said you're currently using. Are you guys other folks using N8N? Not so much? No?
I feel like I'm playing with it, not necessarily using it effectively at this point.
What do you think what do you think is the main barrier, would you say? Is it just not knowing or not being able to have your use case solved, or I guess maybe just not knowing what you can do with it, or what would you say, Jeremy?
Yeah, it's probably a combination of not knowing what I can do with it and not breaking down the processes into enough small steps that I can then repeat kind of in a workflow. And so it's kind of like what is my workflow? Like, I don't really know. I'm just like getting shit done. And so how do you know what you can do? And then how do I know what I actually am trying to do to tell
Right.
a computer?
Actually, I want to double click on that a little bit though. But do you typically do the task yourself right now, or are you trying to, or does someone else do the task? Because there's a way that we can actually take what you do or what someone else does and convert it into a workflow.
So a lot of my problem is the stuff that I'm doing myself, or I should be doing myself. So a lot of what I'm trying to create is not necessarily replacing me. It's doing the things that I know I should be doing that I'm not doing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's running analysis, whatever else. Like the stuff I'm doing, I don't know if I can replace yet through a workflow because it's still pretty like manual. I'm trying to use Manus and some of these other wrappers that can do more. But
Yes.
okay, great. For example, trying to buy a company. I want to go research the company. I want to run all these kind of metrics on it, figuring out how to then build that workflow that actually isn't wasting my time, but is producing a valuable output has been difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. And I think one thing to kind of know off of what we do, we actually, this is kind of funny, but we essentially train a lot of our AI agents and like these automations, these flows by first doing the task ourselves. Like we either get an expert who's good at it to do it, or we do it. And we essentially record ourselves. We loom it, right? We go through end to end, right? I'm just going to talk out loud and I'm just going to imagine I'm trying to give as much information. So what we'll do is we'll go through the process. We'll do it once, record it, and then we transcribe that and turn it into a very detailed kind of prompt or essentially a series of prompts that we then convert into a workflow. That's another way of doing it. And so we have found that to work because, again, at the end of the day, these LLMs, if they're going to do a better job than we will ever, right? Because they just have the skill, the capacity, but they need a good base. They need a good starting point. And being able to, and I've actually found that even going on YouTube, what I'll do sometimes is if I see someone do a process really well on YouTube, I'll get the transcription. I'll essentially go into ChatGPT and I'll say something like, turn this, this process into, or this transcript into a step-by-step process. And then I convert the conversion, I say, create a N8N workflow from this step-by-step process. And that will actually, because N8N is just, it's a very good tool to be able to import code. And that's why I like it too, is you can actually import, files. Like here's one that I recently imported, which we're working on doing as well. This is a full-on, oh, this is very, very messy. Sorry, right now. This is not what I wanted to know. But it's taking, again, the level of, let me see if I can find my other agents. Taking what I saw from a YouTube video and how they're doing something. And I basically, let me say, save without exiting. We'll let that load. But yeah, taking a YouTube video transcription, putting it into ChatGPT, asking it to give me this breakdown of was produced from the video, and then eventually the next response back to it is now provide this to me in a N8N workflow, which you can download and then import into N8N.
And that NAN workflow, is that code or is it text?
It actually it's code. So
Interesting.
yeah, you can go in here. Let me see if I can find one of those.
So technically, ChatGPT could be the NAN N8N. It's a terrible name, by the way. It's such a hard to N8N analyst, if you will, or
yeah, you could say
designer,
system prompt can be you are an N8N
expert.
expert or N8N code builder, right? Here is my workflow. Create a N8N
But don't you have to give it like all the other tools access? How do you give it like permission access to the other tools that you're integrating?
So that you still have to do a level of adding credentials. It'll
Okay,
give placeholders. It'll create these nodes with like a Gmail or a Google Doc, but you have to go in and then you have to essentially add in your credentials, right?
got it.
Which is it's not that difficult if again, at least it gives you the skeleton, and then
Yeah.
you can come in and just essentially authenticate, right? Sometimes it's just username,
So if we go
password.
back to the example earlier, like I'm looking for a set of clients, let's just say in any industry, I can
Yeah,
technically give it access to Sales Navigator and LinkedIn, let it go research certain roles, build a database with as much information it has on them, and then automatically start emailing them, or maybe another tool, another agent that's going to go and actually interact with them. Like there are other tools that can communicate directly with people on LinkedIn or outside of LinkedIn.
yeah. Yeah, the things that people have created are pretty amazing. This new concept of MCP, I'm not sure if you guys maybe have heard that, is also another new thing where before the process of creating these workflows required you to really be specific and say like this, get the transcript or create a document or whatever. Now this can all be replaced with just one node, which is saying you're communicating with the API. This is getting a little technical, but the API documentation has all of those like commands, whether it's a get the document, create a document, go to LinkedIn Navigator, like it has all those things, and it's usually readable only to technology, the tech. But now you can give it a prompt and say, go communicate with the LinkedIn MCP and do these certain things. So I don't have to go into here and I don't have to create a node for getting the sales contact or getting the it makes it simpler, right? We haven't explored enough of that yet. We're still experimenting as well. But there are a couple companies that are building out these essentially almost like a wrapper to build to build MCP like MCP what's it called, tools, right? Because this MCP is just a tool. These are all little tools, right? These are the tools that you're essentially you need in order to do the task, right? And the world of MCP eliminates the need to essentially get very, very finer and detailed.
Yeah.
Uh, but more people have to build MCPs. Like they haven't been built yet. It's still the Wild West, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Okay. So is there a
Yeah.
library of MCPs out there that you can go and find them?
Yes, there are. There. Let me see if I can find. I'll have to find the actual reference, the one that I use, because it's in my LinkedIn somewhere. But like I
Okay.
said, there's a couple that like N8N does have a library that you can use that are built specifically for N8N. But people are building outside of N8N and doing some things with it. All right. For the sake of just repeatability and what we've seen, we're sticking to N8N right now. And as we see more progress with MCPs, we'll probably go that direction. That's kind of where we're
Got it.
thinking. Yeah. Um, so going back to kind of the different steps, right? So kind of inbound sales, outbound sales, right? These are all activities that we're essentially trying to automate or build AI agents to improve these different processes. These are things that, again, we're actively doing. And then the area of marketing, which is something that I'm sure you guys probably do as well, is content generation. A lot of these SMBs, they have a website presence, but they may not be doing enough, whether it's SEO or content generation, targeting a specific industry. And that's another area that we've seen really good progress is how can we automate the process of creating content? Because again, it used to be that you needed a whole content team and you needed, maybe a digital agency, but these things are now more accessible to small business owners as long as you give it a good SOP or some sort of like basically a how-to guide of what you want. It'll keep generating lots of content for you. Have you guys explored that at all, content generation, or not really? I guess in what you guys are doing, because most of you guys are focusing on trying to buy a business, right, and optimize, right? So not really probably content yet.
No, not really.
No.
So what are you using for content? Like, so give me an example. That way it's more.
So what here's one I can try to give you in N8N. Let me see if I can find it. This one is, we're doing this for a client of ours where they wanted to, for their website, they just wanted to have a way to, I don't think it's in this one. Is it? No, it's not in this one. To take a topic that they like, let's say a service that they're focusing on, and create content around that topic, right? So for example, this one that we're working with is an interior designer, so they want to create content around interior designing. And so there are workflows that you can run. Actually, I think in the templates library, which I have you guys checked out N8N template library? This is also a really good resource if you need a kind of a starting point. But if you go here to content generation, you will find a couple of really strong. Here we go. Automated content generation publishing, right? This is another one. Let's go to this one. But there are essentially, yeah, these workflows that you can just import into your N8N instance, and it will do, let's say you're targeting, specific ICP. In this case, the interior designer, they were targeting people from New York who were snowbirds coming to Florida that have a second home. And so can we create content that is specific to, finding a place, or how do you interior design a second home, things like that. And so this is an example of a content generation workflow where you can say essentially in the prompt, that's really what you're kind of giving it. Again, you are a an experienced, content creator for blogs. Provide me, and then you give it the instructions, and then you say, my business is so and so. Create best content for this business, and it'll just create the content in spreadsheets, which then you publish to your website, right? So this
So it's
ability to
so is it automatically publishing, or you still have to
yeah,
do the manual
automatic.
step
No.
automatically?
You automatically, as long as you're okay with it,
Got
you
it.
will be able to publish directly into your website. A lot of people have the approval step right before. That's why
Yeah.
they like, you know, um, man in the middle, they call it, right? Just
Yeah.
to check, approve, and then if it looks good, they approve. And this actually, I'm not sure if this one works with, but you can see here, no, this one doesn't. But you can actually also add images, right? So you can connect to,
Yeah, there is an automated image there. That last step before the WordPress. It's going to pixels or pixels, automated image retrieval.
oh, yes,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah. Um, it, like I said, I have been blown away by how many things can be automated, or how many things can, be replicated simply by
Have you done any inbound, outbound calling?
um I have explored with a friend of mine some outbound calling. We use Vappy for that. Let me see if I can show you. Vappy is probably one of the better tools that actually sounds really good. They um, they include pauses and background noise. It almost feels indistinguishable from a human. It's actually pretty wild. I don't have any examples I can share with you, but what I have seen recently is this one, which I actually explored. It's called Omakazi. And what's cool is, I mean, right now they're offering it as a free. They're trying to get people on the platform, but it's for inbound. So if you all you got to do is, let me see if I can just go to a regular, but you just go to omakazi.ai, you enter in your URL, your website URL, and then it essentially uses the website, all the content on the website, and it builds out a um, sales representative that can answer the calls and answer questions about business, things from your website, from content from your website, which is actually pretty cool. So here's what I was doing for a client of ours. They're a removal business, and you can essentially change it and alter the personality. But what it's doing is you click on this. I don't know if it's going to actually connect or work. Let me see. Allow all this in the site. I don't know if you guys will hear it. See if it works. And again,
Hi, how can I help you today?
did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
I'm
here and ready to assist. What can I help you with regarding your moving or clean out needs today? Welcome. Could you share a bit more about what you're looking for? Moving services, packing help, or maybe a clean out? That way I can guide you best.
I want to move from my apartment.
Certainly. Are you looking for full service moving, packing assistance, both for your apartment move? Also, any special items or timing preferences I should know about?
Yeah, I want to move in end of May.
Great. A move at the end of May gives us a good window to plan smoothly. Do you need help with packing your belongings as well, or just the moving service? Also, any specific concerns like fragile items or large furniture?
No, that's okay.
Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
But
Oh, she
again,
gave up too quick.
I just wanted to. I didn't want to go too much
Yeah.
on this. But what's
No, it's
really
pretty
cool about
good.
it actually, as you can tell, and it's as good as the content on your website, though. That's the only limitation. But if you have a good website, or a client has a good website, just adding that layer, right? And you can kind of tell, you can
So
go
there's no
through.
way to give it more
You
context?
you
You
can,
can.
right?
Okay.
Give it the knowledge base, right?
Okay.
So basically, give it more, add knowledge. Look at your probably most frequent call questions or queries or whatever, and add that here. But even just out of the gate, if you guys want to try it on your own businesses or client
Yeah.
businesses, I mean, that little thing alone could really, and you have analytics to see what are people asking. Right now, like I said, I'm currently testing it. I haven't paid for it or anything like that, but I was just blown away by its use.
And this is just from that chat bot function, or you can actually program it where you can, so when people call in, it will answer the phone.
My understanding is that it's right now it's only through that, like you press that button and then it does invoke, but I think they're moving towards having a phone number. I'm not sure
Got it.
exactly, but
Got it. Okay.
like I said, I've been pretty impressed by some of these things. And so where I go typically, if you guys are interested to know like where do I go to find out all these new tools, I typically like to go to my kind of directories. Let me see if I can find it. I have one right here. So AIagentsdirectory.com, there's this really good one where you can kind of see the breakdown by, productivity, customer service, personal systems. They're constantly being added, right? People are creating new agents, automations. And then another one that I like to go to is, let's say, where is the other one? AI agent directory. I think it's this one, AI list. It's like I like the map here, AI agent map. And so you can see the different types of categories, right? People, how they're using it for coding, research, sales, data analysis. And so, yeah, occasionally I'll go in here if I'm looking to try out new tools. This is what we typically do, right? We have our go-to playbook of things that we've either built or utilized. But we're constantly going in and saying, hey, can we add another, can we solve this problem? Because really what we're trying to do is we're trying to move the needle on the core metrics of the business, specifically for marketing. How can we get more responses? How can we get more impressions, right? Those are the two needles that we're trying to move. For sales, how can we improve the close rate? And how can we improve reduce the sales cycle, right? Those are the two metrics that we're trying to do. And so again, everything that we do in these like basically problems and deliverables, they're all just hypotheses that we're kind of, applying technology, applying agents to see when we implement it, we do two weeks sprint cycles. So we implement it, we say, okay, what did we measure results? Did we see a noticeable improvement in improving impressions or improving responses? And if we did, we then typically double down a little bit more to see, can we get more, right? So we kind of approach it very scientific, if that makes sense. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the other last thing I wanted to share related to these kind of directories that I find really cool is that, I mean, if you have an idea, some of these, I think you can actually, reach out to someone and kind of reach someone to help build. I'm a part of a lot of these AI agent communities as well. So if you guys have any, specific ideas or things you guys want built, I can even tap my resources to say, hey, can we build something really quickly? Because people are excited. I mean, they want to explore, they want to do something, they want to help solve problems now that they have the tools and the access.
Well, I think one of the simpler, go ahead, Jeremy. You had a question?
Yeah, Rich, who do you follow in this space? Like, who or what do you follow to kind of stay up to beat? Because I mean, this stuff's changing all the time.
Yeah,
What's your sources of staying on top of stuff besides just doing it every day?
I like to stick to kind of three main people. Let's see if I can find their names. One is Ben. Let's see, Ben AI. I think his kind of goes by. This guy. Oh, that's the wrong guy. He's
I think I know you're talking about.
this guy's I like to stay in. I'm in a part of his community. It's a paid community, but he basically kind of a great way to get access to a lot of AI agent builders. So I actually ended up finding a couple AI engineers from his group, who are again very active. They want to be a part of building something. So that's one. And then the other one, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I think he was a big guy on school. AI agents. He a lot of these people are creating AI automation agencies, which I think it's a good business to be in because people are like the same way that when the internet came around, people built websites for people, and that was a huge business. People are now creating AI services for people. So this guy, Liam, he's another guy that I follow. And those are the guys who kind of stick to the AI automation. And for any new tech, I mean, I'm always following, the different companies like Anthropic, OpenAI.
I think someone has to build something for, SMBs specifically. And just very simple, like for example, just a very simple automation for aggregating data on specific category of customers, automatically updating and augmenting the CRM. Let's just say that's a basic function. That's like the first task. I haven't seen anyone build that, like that process. I haven't seen it yet. So have you seen that where you can scrape every platform that exists, build a list of all your clients, update it continuously into your CRM, make sure that what's happening with them. If there's something in the news, if there's something going on with their people, their employees, someone moved, someone, all that information, the update, like
right.
constantly
Yeah.
updating your CRM, augmenting your CRM, and then giving you notifications to reach out. I mean, just like essentially sales support for a salesperson, and giving the information to reach out, or even launching an email, like right away, telling people, do some automation around outreach as well.
So you gave me kind of, it came into my head. This company I'm also exploring, Swan. They are a really interesting company in that you are able to get website visitor information level detail. I know this is not exactly what you're saying, but it kind of reminded me. But what it does is, let's say people are visiting your site. Using this tool, you can know, and actually there's another tool that you can also use, but let's say someone came to your site, you can know a little bit of information about them, right? Their LinkedIn, their information about their company. And then you can also use the tool to do some research on that company to see, are they making any recent, maybe new hires? Are they like basically keeping track of that company so that when the time is right, you can actually kind of go in on a conversation and say, oh, we noticed that, obviously, that they came to your site and they're hiring. We noticed you're hiring for sales folks. We just released something. Maybe you'd be interested in it. And so the intent is better than just reaching out right away because they're not ready, right? But with this, you kind of have the signals that they may be ready because you're listening, you're hearing what they're doing, right? They're kind of sharing through this tool.
Yeah, but I think like all this stuff has to happen within the CRM for it to be really actionable. Because if it's just sitting in a separate platform, it doesn't really help me out. I need everything to be centered in the CRM. And are you seeing that more and more where you can push data into a CRM and then augment a profile? There are not that many, like, for example, whether it's Ivan or John or even Jeremy, the number of targets they have, it's not infinite. There's a number, maybe 500, maybe 1,000. So if we can grab the data on those 1,000 targets, and then we have a way to augment that information continuously, and then get alerted when some opportunity comes up or some change comes up, as well as the continuous creating content, email, marketing, phone call, and all that stuff.
What CRM do you guys use? Just out of curiosity. Are you guys using HubSpot or just any?
Yeah, I've used like HubSpot. I've used Zoho. I'm switching now to Go High Level.
I'm using Go High Level right
Yeah,
now.
I'm switching now to Go High Level because it's just cheaper.
Because like what I could do is after this call, right? Maybe even build out something with the help of an AI engineer to kind of solve that, right?
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's really something that you guys feel like, hey, if I had this, which if I were to reiterate to you, is basically you're saying that you guys have right now. The problem is you guys have a list of maybe it's prospects of some kind that's maybe you only have their website, what do you typically only have with them?
Well, sometimes you have, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you can go buy a list. For example, let's say Jeremy's looking at all the air repair, like all plane repair companies in the south, for example. And so that number is very limited. There are not that many of them. So we can go buy a list from that Axle, or we can scrape the internet for that list. But then we want to augment that list. We want to get the owner. We're going to get the phone number, the email, the social, all this, all the stuff. We want to go
Yeah,
ahead.
append or enrich, right? Which there's
Yes,
services that do it, but they do it outside of CRMs. So
correct.
they can pull all this information, but you've got all this dispirited information. Guys like me are too dumb to figure out how to put it all together. Uh, it's data overload, but not
Right,
helpful.
But it
right,
needs to
right.
be continuous. And I
Yeah.
mean, never ending with the RSS feed. And then you have like, oh, they just hired this new person, or they just hired a new CEO. That, all this stuff has to be constantly updating in the system and the
Mhm.
learning, for action.
Hurting you
John, you
to
had the question?
yeah.
I was gonna change the subject just a little bit, and one of
Yeah.
my questions would be like in where a couple of us are out looking for off-market deals, I would like something that, if I give it a list that they're making the calls and talking like that example that you gave and trying to give me a warm lead that I could, or they make an appointment for me or something like that, would be super interesting and helpful.
I love it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the let me see what I can do with some of the AI engineers that we have to kind of create a little demo for you guys. Because I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is we're also trying to keep solving problems that people really need solutions for with the tools. And we started tackling it, this way because there were problems there. We were able to get them solved, and we're constantly seeing new problems pop up. And I think this is one where if there's enough to need and demand, I mean, hey, we'll create something. Maybe we'll have another session or something you guys can use. You give us some feedback, and we can kind of make it more scalable. Because again, the only thing I would need to know is what systems. So it sounds like Go High Level is one of the big ones that you guys from a CRM
What
standpoint.
CRM are you using, John?
That's all done in spreadsheets right now.
Okay.
Spreadsheets.
I would
Okay.
say Go High Level is not it's pretty inexpensive for you if you want to take a look at it. It might be a good tool.
I
Okay.
looked at HubSpot, but it just got too complicated too
Yes.
fast.
Yeah, yeah. HubSpot, and it gets expensive very quickly.
Yeah.
Um, I think Go High Level keeps that cost down.
Mm.
It's like $90, $97, and it has a bunch of tools in it built in.
Yeah. And John, what is the criteria for you? Like if you were to have something that were to call, right? Is there I'm assuming you have a series of questions that you probably just want to qualify for.
Yeah, I have a script that I could share.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That we can use that, right? To kind of create something and test something out. Is that something is everyone mostly feeling that? Oh, I think
I'm
Jeremy.
sorry. I'll share your information with the guys so we can do a follow up, and then yeah, maybe we can do like a once every 4 weeks or 6 weeks call with Rich on AI, the latest and greatest.
Yeah.
I
Like I
think
said,
I think I do think we do want to tackle it one piece at a time. I think, like for example, the use case that John said, it was something that we had a conversation with Jason last week, and he had replaced a whole call center with just AI tool, and it's a much higher conversion rate, much better quality lead, and he did it on the inbound side, and now he's doing it on the outbound. So I think that's a very powerful use case that I think everyone in our groups will use. The use case, the augmentation of the CRM, and then that's a big use case because it makes the automation of marketing much easier. Because if you have clean data, good data, then you can much easier to automate, send an email or message or or write content. And then I think there are going to be some narrow use cases like this, as we develop. But start with sales, go to ops, and then finance.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, I love it. I want to definitely be a part of this. So if you guys have a couple of these ideas, or we'll call it more problems, right?
Yeah.
I like to say I like to fall in love with the problem versus the solution, right? What is the problem? How do I fall in love with it? And then there's so many different solutions, right? Different approaches, but it's really the problem that we have to really care about.
So if I could ask one more question before we leave here, what does like an engagement look like then for, I mean, is it as small as like, hey, I have this one problem that I just want to be able to do this automatically, do the outbound calls for lead generation, for possible business acquisitions, right? That could be like one definition of a problem, or maybe for so that's something I'm doing personally, but for Triton Metal products, maybe it's a way different engagement where you started off in the beginning and you're looking at our whole process flow. So just trying to understand like where
Yeah, yeah,
you're trying to
be
live in
involved.
the marketplace.
Yeah, so I mean, what I've seen, or at least what I've done, is the end to end, right? And that's typically because a lot of these private equity firms and investment banks, they want us to be in there the whole process, whole way in. But what I've seen is there's a need to, some like yourself, John, right? It's like, hey, I just need this one piece. Like if you've done it really well, or if you can create it, maybe that's the starting point for us to start building a longer term relationship, right? I think what we can do is definitely, I mean, I want to have a conversation with you guys personally, if that's okay, and then we can go deeper into how we can make that work, right? Because Jay's bringing me to the table. I want to make sure that I'm delivering value, and then see how I can help more folks.
Cool, thanks.
Okay. Well, I'll send your contact info to everyone, and then let's focus on John's use case, the outbound call. See, and then maybe let me know whenever you're ready to show us, and then we'll bring you back.
Okay.
Sounds good?
Love
All
love
right,
it.
guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Appreciate the
you.
time.